Welcome to CPAC Now, America Uncanceled. I'm Mercedes Schlapp. My sweet husband, Matt Schlapp, can't join me today. I do miss him terribly, but we have such a great guest joining me on our show. Congressman Jim Jordan, the great fighter from the great state of Ohio, ranking member of the House Judiciary Committee, and author of Do What You Said You Would Do. Quite a concept, Congressman. Thanks for joining us.
Good to be with you. And congratulations on almost 20 years, you said.
Can you believe it? 20 years with Matt Schlapp. I mean, he did get the white hair before I got the white hair. So I don't know, maybe I'm adding too much stress in his life. But yes, we are celebrating our 20th wedding anniversary in July, which is just fantastic. And it was kind of funny. You'll laugh, Congressman, because my team called me and they're like, we have a fundraiser set up for Congresswoman Lauren Boebert on July 13th. And I had to be like, okay, guys, that's a little too much. Okay. Not on our wedding anniversary. That just doesn't work, you know, but
I hear you.
But but you know, it's been a wonderful 20 years. And hopefully, as my children asked me yesterday, she's like, Mom, can you get to 50? I'm like, hopefully we'll be old. We might not even know each other at that time, but we'll see what happens.
You'll get there. You'll get there.
We'll see. But Congressman, I'm so glad you're joining us. Obviously, there is so much going on at the Hill, but I got to ask you, so we got news that this January 6th committee, well, they actually postponed the hearing. What are you hearing about that?
I have no idea, but I do think the two hearings that have happened thus far, I don't know that we learned anything new. I mean, we already knew that they're out to get Trump. We already knew that they're trying to end the Electoral College. But, you think about it, hundreds of witnesses, thousands of hours of testimony, two hearings. And did we learn anything we didn't already know? So, and that's in spite of the fact that, they do this. It's choreographed, it's partisan, it's orchestrated. They got the former head of, what ABC News and yet no cross-examination from Republicans. And yet they still can't present anything to the American people that I think is new information. So, but, I think the country understands what's going on here. This is a partisan political activity. Their goal is to stop President Trump from running. I don't think they're going to be successful. I think he's going to run, and I think he's going to win.
I think you're looking at the fact also, I have to wonder, Congressman, I mean, did their video production team decide to take a day off or something like that? Because when you're watching these videos that they're putting out there, when you're seeing the fact how these Democrats and these two Republicans which I don't even really consider them Republicans anymore, are trying to create this narrative of demonizing President Trump. And then they have the audacity to say like, oh, President Trump, they were fundraising off January 6th. They were fundraising off of these election fraud claims. Goodness gracious. I think the Democrats fundraise off of everything, including the January 6th hearings. Your thoughts?
No, of course, Adam Schiff sent fundraisers out about when they subpoena, when they take actions that they take. I think one of the members sent a fundraising email or letter to someone they'd subpoenaed in front of the committee, for goodness sake. So, but you know how it is. There's always two standards. There's one set of rules for us regular folk and a different set if you're part of the elite left wing, apparatus here in D.C. But I think the country is focused on the issues that are impacting them and their families. They're focused on energy prices, the price of fuel, which is over $5 a gallon. They're focused on the fact that we no longer have a border, on the rising crime rates, the attacks on our First Amendment rights, our Second Amendment rights. And they see this committee for what it is. I think it's real important, too. This is worse, less due process than when we had the impeachment of President Trump back in 2019, when Adam Schiff did those hearings in the bunker in the basement of the Capitol. At least we got to be in there. I mean, President Trump couldn't have any legal rep, he couldn't have his lawyers there, but at least we Republicans were in the room. We could ask questions of the witnesses. And then when they had the open hearings, we could cross-examine the witnesses that the Democrats brought in. But this is even worse. There is no opposition whatsoever, no chance to cross-examine witnesses, no chance to look at the transcripts, the evidence, the documents at all. And we've also caught this committee altering evidence. So that's why I think in spite of all that, we still haven't learned anything new. And I think, again, the country has figured out what this is really all about.
Let's broaden a little bit on this altered evidence. Obviously, there was a text exchange between former Chief of Staff Mark Meadows, a dear friend, and you as well, where the committee only took like a piece of it. It almost truncated the text. And then we saw the January 6th panel. They actually apologized for the error. which was truncated. Explain why there is this altered evidence as you're talking about this.
Well, first of all, it wasn't a text from me. It was a text I forwarded to then Chief of Staff Mark Meadows, and it was a text from a respected lawyer, former Inspector General for Don Rumsfeld in the Bush administration. So it was a text he had sent me. I forwarded to Mark Meadows. They altered it. They changed the punctuation. They presented it to the American people and said it was from a member of Congress. And there was a story that the Federalist did that outlined all this. And the committee then had to issue a statement where they said, "We regret the error." And as I always point out, when Democrats say we regret the error, that is government speak for we got caught lying. So and then there's other statements they made that aren't accurate. They made a statement about Bernie Kerik, that he was at some location when in fact he was in New York. They've leaked all kinds of evidence. So again, just underscoring what the country has already figured out. This is a completely partisan political committee, and the first committee in history. First select committee, first committee in history where the minority party was not allowed to have representation. The selections that our leader, Kevin McCarthy, had for that committee weren't allowed to be on the committee. First time in the history, 232 years that's happened, which again, I think just emphasizes how political this thing is.
So a couple of observations I made as I've been watching these. Sometimes I feel like I watch these hearings because I feel like nobody else is watching them. So I figured, let me get a sense of where these guys are headed. But three things. One is that when you saw Officer Caroline Edwards from Capitol Police speak, she made it very clear that she was in desperate need of additional resources. So obviously, one, we've seen a massive security failure. Secondly, you saw the filmmaker, Nick Quested, who came out, who was following the Proud Boys and following the Oath Keepers. Yet, even when he knew what they were plotting, he didn't go to the FBI. I mean, seriously, Congressman, like, how can you not if you know that there's something that they're plotting that could actually hurt what was happening in the Capitol? And so just to get, and then the third point of this is watching Ben Ginsburg, someone who I worked closely with and Matt worked closely with, during the Bush, White House, where he was the first one to always know, look, these were the games that the Democrats would play to try to get votes in these elections. And now he's saying, no, there's no election fraud. So how did you unpack the January 6th hearings?
Well, a couple of things. It's kind of tough to say it was a pre-planned conspiracy and then say, oh, on that day, President Trump incited it. And it's tough to say he incited it when, of course, he said peacefully and patriotically make your voices heard. So you can't have it both ways, or in this case, you can't have it all three ways, for goodness sake. So that's sort of what they're trying to do, throw anything and everything out there and just anything that they think is going to be harmful to President Trump. But the country is smart. The American people have common sense, and they have figured it out. And they know that President Trump didn't incite this. And they know, frankly, that Republicans have been consistent. We have condemned the violence every time it happened. We condemned it when it happened on January 6th. We condemned it in the summer of 2020. We condemned it. We condemned these crazy protests where there was an assassination attempt on a sitting Supreme Court justice just last week. They're the ones who held up the bill that would give protection to the Supreme Court justices' families. They're the ones who said during the summer of 2020 that rioters and looters are actually peaceful protesters. They're the ones who made all the statements they made during that summer and talked about defunding the police. And Kamala Harris, now vice president, then senator, raised money to bail out these rioters and looters who were attacking businesses and attacking our law enforcement officers. So they're the ones who've been inconsistent. So again, I think the country has figured all this out. And to the security posture of this place, the only one who could answer that question is the one person that Chairman Thompson has said is off limits, and that's Speaker Pelosi.
Well, I mean, I think Speaker Pelosi's been spending some days hanging out at the drag race party event somewhere in California. But let me ask you this. You brought up the assassination attempt on Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh. You know, it's something that for us is very personal. We know the Kavanaughs well. You know, I obviously am very concerned about their family. I know Amy Coney Barrett is feeling the same sense of fear with the fact that they're targeting their children. They're targeting their children and their church. I mean, this is so not America, right? Like how could we even allow for us to be in this position where our Supreme Court justices' lives are at risk? And the mere fact that you have President Biden really being silent on the issue, not condemning this, what is going to happen here?
Yeah, and it's in direct violation of a current statute. 18 U.S.C. Section 1507 says you're not to be protesting at justice's home in an effort to intimidate and influence a decision. But that's exactly what they're doing. And as you rightly point out, Mercedes, this organization, Ruth sent us, published the school where Justice Barrett's children go, published where their family goes to church, made fun of the fact that they go to church. That's a good thing in this great country. But that's the message from the left. And the Democrats knew all this and waited 1 month, more than a month, to pass legislation that would give family members of these justices of our highest court the protection they deserve and the protection, frankly, they need. It's all part of this intimidation effort from the left. Think about what they've done to the court. First, there was Justice Kavanaugh's confirmation process where they made up all kinds of false things about Justice Kavanaugh. Then there were Schumer's statements on the steps of the Supreme Court where he said, you've unleashed the whirlwind. You're going to pay a price, Justice Gorsuch, Justice Kavanaugh. I mean, almost like a threat. Then there was, of course, 14 months ago, Jerry Nadler introduced legislation to add 4 associate justices to the United States Supreme Court to pack the court. Then over the last several months, there's been this sustained attack on Justice Thomas and his wife. Then, of course, there was the leak of the draft opinion, first time it's ever happened in American history. Then there was the protest that happened almost immediately thereafter. Then there was the hearing the Democrats on the House Judiciary Committee had about the abortion issue, about the life issue, about the Dobbs case, while the court's deliberating. And it was the hearing where we had the Democrat witness say that men could get pregnant. And then, of course, after that, you had the assassination attempt on Justice Kavanaugh. That is intimidation and is just how the left operates. And it's broader, frankly. There's the intimidation of parents who show up at school board meetings. There's the intimidation of all of us with the DHS, Disinformation Governance Board. So this is intimidation, and it's scary, and it needs to stop.
The mere fact that you said that these Democrats believe that men can get pregnant, really, really scary. And you tweeted about that. The same party that thinks men can get pregnant wants you to trust them when it comes to the economy and the January 6th committee. I do want to get your thoughts. Where do you think the investigation on the Supreme Court leaks? Where will that result, or where will that end?
I don't know. I don't know. Let's just hope that this doesn't happen again. It's not supposed to happen. And frankly, let's hope that the draft, the leaked draft opinion. Let's hope that's the opinion. Let's hope that this. Because if it is, that's a win for the sanctity of human life. That's a win for the Constitution. That's a win for common sense. And frankly, it's also a win against the intimidation tactics that the left has employed over the last several months. So let's hope that the leaked draft opinion is ultimately the final opinion. You know,
Congressman, you know that it's bad for the Democrats when you have Bill Maher, obviously a well-known, outspoken liberal, go out and basically said that the Sunday shows, the New York Times, they buried the story on the assassination attempt on the Supreme Court justice. And it just shows, I think, how the left really views conservatives in general.
Yeah, no, it's scary. The highest court in the land, a sitting justice, and the fact that it was Justice Kavanaugh after what the Democrats, the lies the left made up about this individual back during his confirmation process. It is, and then for the speaker last week to say, no one's in danger, and to push this bill off that we just passed by suspension today on the House floor, for her to push it off last week after she knew about this assassination attempt on a justice of our highest court. I don't understand it, but I think it's, again, emblematic of the left, the same left that made all the ridiculous statements they made in the summer of 2020.
Well, it's why they're losing support. Congressman, stay with us. Congressman Jim Jordan, we'll be right back. Welcome to America Uncanceled. I am joined once again with Congressman Jim Jordan. We were tackling a lot of this conversation January 6th. I want to shift gears over to these put your political hat on here. These poll numbers, you're seeing an approval rating for Joe Biden at 38.9%, another low for Joe Biden. I mean, you're seeing the fact that AOC is even questioning whether she would support him if he would run again in 2024. You tweeted out, President Biden's getting less popular. President Trump's getting more popular. The swamp's getting worried. I love that tweet. Yeah. What do you think? I mean, can he recover?
I don't see how. right now, Mercedes, more than 7 out of 10 of our fellow citizens think the country's headed in the wrong direction, wrong track. When you got 75% of the country thinking the greatest nation in history is moving in the wrong direction, that is just not good. But they think that because it's true. There's not one policy area where this administration has done anything right. I mean, you look at the border is now no longer a border. We don't have one. We went from safe streets to record levels of crime. We went from energy independence to $5 gas, and the president begging OPEC, Saudi Arabia, Iran, Venezuela, you name it, to increase production. And we went from stable prices to a 41-year high inflation. And we haven't even got into the foreign policy concerns that are there. And of course, the attacks on our First Amendment and Second Amendment liberties. So I don't know how they change it. It's sad for our country, but I think politically it means that the country is fixing to make a big change come this year's midterm elections. We just, as Republicans, got to continue to go out and talk to the American people about what we will do if we win. And when we win, how we will do what we said we would do.
So you're seeing this 40-year high inflation rate. You're seeing Federal Reserve Chairman Jay Powell basically trying to balance out, okay, I'm going to raise the percentage points here to either 0.5% or to 0.75%, trying to figure out how they can avoid a recession. Do you think a recession is avoidable?
Boy, I hope so. I mean, you don't want families already hurting enough. You don't want a full-fledged recession. But so I hope we can avoid that. But I'm struck by a couple of weeks ago, Treasury Secretary Yellen said she was surprised by the persistent and the high level inflation. I'm like, how can you be surprised? You guys spent money like crazy. You pay people not to work, and you drive up the cost of energy. Right. And it's like there's anyone with common sense understands that that's going to lead to inflation. So I don't get him. I don't think. Frankly, I don't think that they feel it the same way that families across the heartland feel it. Places where you have to make things and grow things and move things, or you're in trucking and manufacturing and construction and agriculture. It's not the same as life in D.C. and San Francisco, where you can Zoom in the meeting and you can remote work. I mean, folks out in Western Ohio that I represent, they got to go to work, and they don't drive a electric vehicle on the farm. They drive a pickup truck, and they're working you have to show up. I just think this town misses it. But it's those families who've been busting their tail, working hard, who are most impacted by the crazy policies from this administration. I hope we can avoid a recession, but we'll have to see. If they don't change their policies, I think it's going to be tough, but let's hope we can avoid it.
So it looks like President Biden's going to be heading to the Middle East in early to mid-July here, going to Israel and then going to Saudi Arabia. I mean, I feel like he's going to Saudi Arabia to beg for help when it comes to importing more oil. And Saudi Arabia, they must be laughing at us. They must be thinking, here you had an energy independent country under President Trump, and now all of a sudden we're having to depend on nations like Saudi Arabia and even Venezuela. What do you think, President Biden, what do you think he's going to say to the Saudi leaders? And how can he try to salvage himself at this moment?
I don't know. It's a good question, but I don't know what he's going to say. And I don't think it's just Saudi Arabia who's potentially laughing at us. I think it's probably every country. I guess you look at the bright side. If there's a bright side here, the good thing is he's going to visit our best friend and ally, the state of Israel. But you're right, Mercedes. He's begged OPEC. He's begged Venezuela and Iran. Now he's going to beg Saudi Arabia to increase production instead of doing what's just good common sense, which is, let's increase production here like we had under President Trump. Let's open up the pipeline. Let's open up Anwar. Let's allow more leases to happen on federal land. And let's get back to being energy independent and not have $5 gas. That would just make too much sense. And frankly, even if he wanted to do that, understand the left who controls his party will not allow it.
That's right.
I mean, I sat in a hearing several months ago where Ro Khanna, a Democrat colleague from Silicon Valley, the oil and gas executives were in front of the committee. He went down the line and said, will you promise to decrease production? Why won't you pledge today to decrease production? What's wrong with you? Why won't you decrease? And I'm like, what do these people want? $8 gas? The truth is they do, which is scary because, it disproportionately hurts middle class, working class people and families who work for a living, who are, like I said, who make things, grow things and move things. They get hurt the worst, but they don't care because they've got their crazy left-wing ideology.
And their goal is to force changed behavior amongst the American people to be like, yes, you need to buy an electric car, and this is your moral obligation to do so, because that is their religion. Their religion is that of, quote unquote, climate change and trying to change our behaviors when it comes to our purchasing power. You tweeted out, President Trump predicted if Joe Biden was elected, you'd see $5, $6, and even $7 gas. Goodness gracious, he was right again. Let me get your quick reaction to this as we're entering into these midterm election races. There's a lot of momentum on our side. You mentioned that big change will come in this year's midterm elections because Americans think the country's on the wrong track. What big change are you all planning as Republican and conservative leaders? I'm not even going to say if, but when we win the majority in the House of Representatives.
Yeah, if the American people put us in power, we need to pass legislation that would actually secure our border. We need to pass good regulatory reform, tax reform that would actually help with our inflation and economy and help there. And we need to we need to pass legislation that would address big tech censorship. All those things need to pass. Unfortunately, I don't know that they get through the Senate. And even if they did, I don't think Joe Biden would sign them. But we still need to do it to help frame up the 2024 presidential race when I think, as I said before, that President Trump is going to run, and I think he's going to win. And also what we need to do is make sure the American people get the facts and the truth on all the things the left has been up to. So the targeting of parents at school board meetings, the opening up of our border, not having a border. We need to investigate that on the Judiciary Committee. Ways and Means Committee needs to investigate how did thousands of Americans' tax returns become public. We need to investigate. The Oversight Committee needs to look at all the things that Dr. Fauci said that were inaccurate, untrue, and the origins of this virus. Those investigations need to happen so that the country at least has the facts and the truth as they head into our most important election, which is when we elect a new commander-in-chief.
Amen. Amen. Dr. Fauci, I haven't heard that name in so long. I thought he was living in his basement. Congressman Jim Jordan, you're the best. We're so blessed to have you as part of the CPAC family, and we thank you for your incredible leadership. God bless, and thanks for joining me today.
You bet. Mercedes, thanks. Have a great day. You too.
Thank you all for joining tonight on America Uncanceled. Remember to register for CPAC Texas, August. I was going to say April, but actually it's August 4th through the 7th. It's going to be an amazing event. We have incredible speakers all lined up. And, you know, it's a great opportunity for all of us to come together. And it is going to be the countdown to the midterm elections. That's a big kickoff happening at CPAC August 4th through the 7th. Make it your last vacation before we have to work really hard to make sure that Republicans and conservatives win in November. And always remember to follow us on our social media channels at CPAC, at MSchlapp, at Mercedes Schlapp. Always a lot of opinions, always a lot going on. And we're going to continue this fight to save America for you and for your children and for the next generation. God bless you all and good night.